Welcome to the deep dive. We've got some really interesting source material for you today.
Yeah, this one looks fascinating.
It's a presentation called Burning Sugar in Blood Diabetes, Exercise, and Isotona, and it's from Dr. Lev Nemotin.
Ah, right. He's the PhD CEO and head of R&D at N5 Digital Inc.
Exactly. And his presentation gives this really compelling look at, well, just how absolutely crucial exercise is for managing diabetes.
And it also introduces this specific device, IsoTone, as a, potential tool to help make that exercise happen more consistently.
Right. What I found really compelling is that it doesn't just state the obvious, like exercise is good, we all know that, but it really digs into the biology, like why it works on a cellular level, the mechanisms involved.
And then connects that science back to the, let's be honest, often difficult challenge of actually doing the exercise regularly. It tries to bridge that gap.
Precisely. So the presentation follows a pretty clear path, which we'll follow too in our deep dive. First, it kind of sets the scene, explains the problem exercise addresses. Then it gives us a quick look at the IsoTone device itself. You know, what it is, its features.
Got it, the tool itself.
And then the main part, it pulls it all together. It connects that device and the science directly to managing diabetes and how it could be used.
So for you listening, our mission today is basically to unpack what Dr. Nemotin's work says about how exercise helps your body burn sugar, biologically speaking.
Yeah, and compare different exercise approaches like HIIT versus steady state.
And then understand how this new portable tech, IsoTone, is being proposed to make all that more accessible and maybe more effective, especially for people managing diabetes.
Okay, let's dive right in, starting with that foundational point. Why exercise is just so critical. The source really hammers home that it's not optional, not just a nice to have.
Right. It's presented as absolutely essential, working right alongside medical treatments to manage the condition and, crucially, improve long-term health outcomes.
But even though we know this, there's still a big hurdle, right? The presentation points out this need for an exercise solution that's different.
Yeah, one that breaks free from the usual limitations. It needs to be portable, easy to use, something you can do anywhere, anytime.
And at different intensities, importantly. Plus, it needs to adapt to wherever someone is physically. Maybe they can't stand easily or have limited mobility.
That's a pretty ambitious goal for a single device, which is where IsoTone comes in. The idea presented is for it to be like a constant companion.
Always there, easy to pick up, effective for a full-body workout, they claim.
Exactly. And the presentation sets out to show how IsoTone might do that, while also giving that detailed overview of the diabetes science. It's positioning IsoTone as a versatile tool to bridge that science-to-practice gap.
Okay, so before we get deep into the biology, let's do that quick look at the tool itself, IsoTone. The source material keeps this part fairly compact before shifting focus.
Right, good idea.
Yeah.
So IsoTone is described as, well, incredibly small, only 7 ounces. Feather light, really.
Wow, that is portable.
Yeah, and it's designed for full-spectrum resistance. Plus, interestingly, it can apparently be used for therapeutic massage, too. Kind of a side benefit.
Huh. Okay. But the main things.
Portability and adaptability seem key. Use it anywhere, sitting, standing, lying down. It's meant to conform to you, not the other way around.
And the tech inside is where it gets unique, right? Something about hydraulics.
Exactly. An internal hydraulic system provides resistance. But here's the clever bit. It's got this patent-pending design for dynamic auto-adjusting resistance.
Auto-adjusting, meaning?
The resistance changes based purely on how hard you push or pull. There's no setting dials or changing weights. You push harder, it resists more, instantly.
Ah, okay. So it matches your effort in real time.
Precisely. Which, the source suggests, makes it both effective and safe for a huge range of people. Athletes, physical therapy patients, older adults, pretty much anyone.
Because it adapts to their capability on the fly, unlike, say, a dumbbell, which is always the same weight.
Right. Or resistance bands that only pull one way. IsoTone claims continuous resistance through complex movements and near 100% efficiency because it's always matching you.
So small, handheld, smooth feel for frequent use. And it was developed with physical therapists for rehab, too.
Yeah. They mentioned collaboration with PT professionals. The auto-adjusting nature seems like it would simplify things in a clinical or rehab setting. Less fussing with equipment.
Makes sense. And there's one more feature mentioned, an effort gauge.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty neat. Basically, as you work out, your effort creates heat inside the device. Energy conversion. A sensor measures this heat.
And displays it somehow.
Displays it as a heat level. So you get real-time feedback on how much effort you're actually putting in. Not just how you feel, but a quantifiable measure.
That is clever. Could help with tracking progress, consistency, maybe even estimating calorie burn.
Exactly. And the source notes it could give healthcare providers actual data on strength and endurance changes, which is often hard to get easily outside a lab. It connects feeling with fact.
Okay, interesting tool. But like you said, the real meat of this presentation is connecting all this back to diabetes, how exercise works biologically, and how a tool like IsoTone might fit in.
Yes, this is where it gets really fascinating. It starts with the most basic question. Does exercise actually burn sugar in the blood?
And the answer is?
A very clear yes. And it explains two powerful biological ways this happens.
Okay, what's the first one? This sounds important.
The first is what they call the insulin-independent pathway. This is like almost the magic trick for people with insulin issues.
Insulin-independent, meaning it works without insulin.
That's the key. The simple mechanical action of your muscles contracting, just, squeezing directly, signals these things called GLUT4 transporters.
Glucose doorways, basically.
Perfect analogy. They're usually stored inside the muscle cell. Contraction tells them, move to the surface, and once they're there, they pull glucose straight out of the bloodstream into the muscle.
Even if insulin isn't working well or isn't there in sufficient amounts.
Exactly. It bypasses the usual insulin key mechanism for that specific uptake, which is obviously huge for managing diabetes. The source mentions studies supporting this immediate effect.
Wow, okay. So muscle work itself opens glucose doors. What's the second mechanism?
The second one is the post-exercise insulin sensitivity boost. So this happens after you stop exercising.
Your body becomes more sensitive to insulin.
Significantly more sensitive. And this effect, the presentation notes, can last a surprisingly long time, anywhere from 24 hours up to maybe 72 hours.
3 days.
Potentially, yes. It means during that window, any insulin your body does produce, or any you take, works much more effectively. Less insulin is needed to get the same blood sugar lowering effect.
So the doors open more easily when insulin does not.
You got it. Studies, like one mentioned from back in '88, demonstrated this prolonged boost. For someone with type 2, this might mean needing way less medication, maybe even none for a short period after a workout.
So putting it together, exercise is almost acting like a natural insulin helper or mimetic.
That's a great way to put it. It provides this alternative way to get glucose down, which is incredibly valuable if your own insulin system isn't working optimally.
Okay, so we know how it works. Powerful stuff. The next question the presentation tackles is, what kind of exercise is best? Should you be doing high-intensity stuff or more steady, longer workouts?
Right. And the source says, well, both are good, but they offer slightly different benefits and might be better suited for different goals or people.
Let's break that down. What about HIIT, high-intensity interval training?
Okay, so HIIT involves those really short, sharp bursts of intense effort, then a quick recovery, then repeat. The source says this causes a very high immediate glucose uptake.
Burns sugar fast during the workout.
Yes, and it also depletes your muscle glycogen stores rapidly. The follow-on effect is a big but relatively short-lived boost in that insulin sensitivity, maybe 24 to 48 hours.
So quick, intense hit, quick, intense benefit. Any downsides?
Well, the source does mention a higher risk of hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, because it burns glucose so fast. And it's definitely not for everyone. People with certain heart conditions need to be cautious. But studies show just 2-3 sessions a week can make a difference.
Okay. What about the other end of the spectrum? More moderate, longer exercise like brisk walking, or maybe using IsoTone at a lower resistance for a while.
That approach gives you a steadier glucose burn during the exercise. It also tends to burn more fat over the duration.
And the insulin sensitivity effect.
It's described as more moderate than HIIT's peak, but potentially more sustained, lasting longer. And crucially, this type of exercise is generally safer and more sustainable, especially for older folks or those with diabetes complications. Studies show it's good for blood glucose and lipid profiles.
The presentation also mentions resistance training specifically, like you could do with IsoTone. How does that fit in?
Ah, yes. Resistance training might not burn quite as much glucose during the session itself compared to intense cardio, but its huge benefit is building muscle mass over time.
More muscle means what?
The source calls muscle a metabolic sink. Basically, more muscle gives your body a bigger storage tank for glucose and improves your overall ability to handle sugar long term. It provides a powerful, sustained improvement in glucose metabolism and insulin sensitivity. Consistency is key, though.
So different types hit different pathways or have different timing.
Exactly. And this is where the versatility of a tool like IsoTone is highlighted. The idea is You could potentially use it for those short, intense bursts. They call it IsoTone HIIT mode.
Oh.
Or for longer, lower resistance aerobic style sessions, IsoTone Enduro mode. An app or a coach could guide you, tailoring the workout type to your specific needs and goals, leveraging the science we just discussed.
Personalizing it based on the biology. Okay, now the presentation gets really specific, right? It gives actual numbers for sugar burn rates.
It does, which is super helpful to make this concrete. First, it notes the rate depends on several things.
Like what?
Your muscle mass, obviously, which muscles you're using, how long and how hard you exercise, even what your blood sugar level is when you start.
Makes sense. So given those factors, what are the approximate burn rates they provide?
Okay, so for really intense exercise like HIIT near your max heart rate, they estimate around 1.0 to 1.5 grams of glucose burned per minute. That uses glycogen but also pulls hard from blood glucose.
Okay, highest burn rate. What about moderate cardio?
Moderate cardio, maybe 60–70% max heart rate, is estimated at roughly 0.5 to 0.9 grams per minute. More of a mix of glucose and fat burning there.
And the isotone style workout, that blend of resistance and aerobic movement.
They estimate that around 0.6 to 1.0 grams per minute for a typical 20 to 40-minute session. They call it an efficient hybrid, getting immediate glucose disposal plus building that long-term muscle capacity.
And they gave an example scenario, didn't they, to put these numbers in context?
Yes. For an average person, say 75 kilograms, doing a 30-minute moderate session with something like IsoTone.
How much glucose it burn?
Their estimate is around 20 to 25 grams of glucose used.
Okay. And what could that translate to in terms of blood sugar drop?
This is the really striking part. The presentation suggests this could potentially lower blood sugar by about 80 to 100 milli-GDL.
Wow. That's a significant drop from just 30 minutes of moderate effort.
It is. Now, they're very careful to add caveats. It depends heavily on the individual, the remaining insulin function, timing relative to meals and meds, all that. But it really illustrates the potential power.
Absolutely brings it home. Okay, so building on that science, the presentation talks about designing exercise programs specifically for people with diabetes. What are the main goals?
The key goals outlined are lowering those blood sugar spikes after meals, improving long-term A1C levels, building muscle to boost insulin sensitivity, and ideally reducing the need for medication over time.
And what about frequency and structure? How often, what should a session look like?
They recommend exercising a minimum of 5 days a week, but optimally. Shorter sessions, maybe 15–30 minutes, done daily.
Daily movement, okay. And the structure?
Pretty standard, actually. A short warm-up, maybe 3 to 5 minutes. Then the main workout could be 10–15 minutes of resistance flow, or a longer 20–30 minute aerobic session, maybe with some intervals. Then a brief cool down.
Seems manageable. What practical tips or warnings does the source give for people with diabetes exercising?
Several important ones. Avoid exercising when your insulin is peaking. That increases hypoglycemia risk. Definitely measure blood glucose before and about 15–30 minutes after exercising to see how your body responds.
Learn your patterns.
Exactly. Stay hydrated. Take really good care of your feet. Checking for blisters or sores is crucial. And always start slow and gradually increase intensity or duration.
And they mentioned adapting for complications too.
Yes. For neuropathy or eye problems like retinopathy, they suggest sticking to seated or no-impact exercises using IsoTone while seated is given as an example.
Makes sense. What about heart issues?
For anyone with a cardiac history, using a heart rate monitor during exercise, like with IsoTone, and progressing very slowly and cautiously is advised. Doctor's guidance is key there, obviously.
Okay. This all leads to a really big question, one I imagine many people with diabetes think about. Can exercise actually replace insulin?
The million-dollar question. The source gives a careful, nuanced answer. It's generally not a direct replacement for everyone. Think of it more as a powerful partner to insulin and other treatments.
But maybe more potential for type 2 diabetes.
Definitely. The presentation highlights that, especially in the early stages of type 2, a consistent program of diet and exercise can often significantly reduce or sometimes even eliminate the need for insulin or oral meds.
How does that work?
Because the regular activity makes the body's own remaining insulin work much better. It enhances endogenous insulin action, so you need less or maybe no exogenous help from injections or pills.
And the evidence for this is strong.
Very strong. They cite the famous diabetes prevention program study, the DPP, that showed 150 minutes a week of moderate exercise plus diet changes cut the risk of developing type 2 diabetes by 58%.
58%? That's
Yeah.
huge.
It is. And significantly better than the drug metformin achieved in the same study, which was 31%. They also point to other studies showing exercise plus meds drastically lowered A1C levels, like from 8.2% down to 6.7% in just a few months. Real-world impact.
Okay, so powerful potential for type 2. What about type 1 diabetes?
The situation is different there, and the source is clear. Exercise cannot replace insulin for type 1 because the body simply doesn't make enough, or any.
But it still helps.
Oh, absolutely. It can help reduce the total amount of insulin needed, particularly the background or basal dose. It can smooth out those tricky blood sugar spikes after meals, and just generally make blood sugar levels more stable and predictable.
But there are risks.
Yes. The big caution for type 1 is managing hypoglycemia. They have to be really diligent about monitoring blood sugar and adjusting their insulin doses and carb intake around exercise to stay safe. It requires more careful management.
Right. So pulling all this together, the biology, the different exercise types, the considerations, how does the presentation position IsoTone specifically as a tool for people with diabetes?
It summarizes several strengths that seem tailored to the challenges. First, it's compact and portable, meaning you can easily use it at home, consistently, which is key for adherence.
You don't need to go to a gym.
Exactly. Second, its ability to do both resistance and aerobic-style work means you can tap into both those biological pathways for glucose control we talked about.
The direct uptake and the sensitivity boost?
Right. Third, the 360-degree range of motion allows for full-body workouts, engaging more muscle, leading to a higher metabolic burn.
Okay.
Fourth, that auto-adjusting intensity makes it safe and adaptable for almost anyone, regardless of their current fitness level or limitations.
And finally,
The potential for Bluetooth connection and that effort gauge that opens the door for tracking progress, getting personalized feedback, maybe even guided routines based on your data.
and how do they frame this? What's the positioning concept?
They suggest thinking of IsoTone as an insulin-free movement coach.
Insulin-free movement coach.
Yeah, the idea is it's a tool that empowers you to lower blood sugar using that insulin-independent muscle action, build muscle as that long-term glucose sink, and its sheer accessibility helps make movement a sustainable daily habit.
Okay, that was quite the deep dive into Dr. Newmoten's presentation. So, to quickly recap the key takeaways from the source, exercise isn't just good, it's critical for diabetes because it works through these very specific biological routes that direct glucose uptake by muscles and the boost in insulin sensitivity afterwards.
Right, and different types of exercise like HIIT or moderate resistance work have different strengths. The presentation suggests a tool like IsoTone, being so adaptable and portable, could be a way to make effective exercise more accessible and customizable for a whole range of people managing diabetes, tailored to their needs.
And that potential impact, especially for type 2 diabetes, seems really significant. The idea presented that consistent personalized exercise may be made easier by tools like this could genuinely help people reduce their reliance on medication, maybe even insulin in some cases. That's pretty profound.
It really is.
Yeah.
It shifts some of the power back to the individual through lifestyle changes enabled by technology.
It definitely makes you think, doesn't it? Consider the potential for these kinds of accessible, adaptable tools to really change how we manage chronic conditions, turning daily movement, something maybe tracked by a simple handheld device, into a powerful, measurable part of your own healthcare. Almost like having that personalized movement coach right there, helping your body do what it does best, burn that sugar.